This is massive for the Miami Heat's future, as a report has dropped indicating that the Heat remain very high on Tyler Hero's potential and that they plan to have him a part of their future going forward following this trade deadline. So we'll break that down in this episode of Heat Digest. Wemby also had a few comments about the Heat's culture, so we'll break that down, as well as Haywood Highsmith. We have an update on his front, so stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. We notice about 97% of you who are watching are not subscribed. So if you are part of that 97.8 who aren't subscribed, scroll down and hit that button. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and that's a massive milestone for us. Now, Houston, a lot to get into today, and let's just get right into the first bit here. And this is huge for the Heat's future. Now, obviously, yesterday was a very disappointing day if you were a Miami Heat fan and you had high expectations coming into the trade deadline. They made their big move before the deadline, acquiring Terry Rozier, but they didn't make a move yesterday, unfortunately. And obviously, we'll have another video breaking down potential buyout candidates and things like that. But this report dropped the other day here, and its report, Miami Heat remain very high on Tyler Hero's potential, and this is an interesting time for this to drop following them not dealing him at the trade deadline. There were obviously a lot of rumblings regarding that, and they basically say that Miami kept Hero through Thursday's trade deadline as the team stood pat after making the trade at Rozier. And there was a quote from reporters saying, trading Hero in the middle of the season was always considered unlikely. The Heat remain high on Hero's potential, and the team has only considered trading him for an all-star talent. Now, Houston, what are your thoughts on this? Do you agree with this? And are you surprised that the Heat did not make a move this trade deadline?
Am I surprised they didn't make a move in any way
After
before
Rozier.
yeah, yeah. Am I surprised? Yes, a bit. Am I surprised they didn't move Tyler Hero? Not at all. I did not think he was going to be moved at least before this deadline. It seemed like there was some speculation, and we did run with it a little bit, and it was an awesome conversation to be had because he is a big name. He has a lot of value, not just for the Miami Heat, but any team in the NBA, it seems like, would be willing and wanting to have someone like Tyler Hero. But again, didn't really expect him to be moved before yesterday's deadline, before 3 p.m. So that's not really too much of a shock. But Miami not going out and getting that big center that we need, someone like Gafford, Nick Claxton, even Andre Drummond, someone along those lines, it was a bit surprising to me, I will say.
Yeah, and you made a video on it yesterday. The Heat still don't have a center. At least they have a center. They don't have a big body that they were. But the market really didn't move too much regarding that. Drummond didn't get moved. A lot of these guys. Gafford would have been the big one that the Heat probably should have been poking their nose into regarding that trade market. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think, and we probably didn't, neither of us thought the Heat were going to make a trade regarding Tyler Hero, but there were a lot of rumblings there. And the end of this is pretty interesting where it says they've only considered trading him for an all-star. So he's not untouchable, but I would suspect that maybe he was only available in a deal for maybe, I mean, Donovan Mitchell, maybe before they got Terry Rozier, players like that, because there's not many all-star centers available. I don't think they would include him in a Nick Claxton trade, even though that is another interesting conversation to have in itself. He's averaging 21 points a game, back-to-back 20-point per game seasons. Like, he's getting better, but he's also, some Heat fans may say he's starting to plateau a little bit. His three-point shooting has been unbelievable this year, 41% on 8 attempts a game. So depending on how high you view Tyler Hero would obviously depend on whether you would want to trade him for a center going forward. But it seems like the Heat want to keep him on the team, and they are very high on his potential, like most Heat fans are, I think. But it's good to see that they want to stick with him. The question is, if that deal comes up, I would not be surprised if they ultimately trade him, whether it's in the offseason or, next trade deadline for a center, because they have to address the center position at some point. And I don't know if there's many free agents there might be who want to come to the Heat out there that could address it, at least not this season, because that's over. And the buyout market's not looking too great regarding centers.
Yeah, so Tyler Hero, he is very streaky, it seems like, when it comes to his shooting percentages overall, not just behind the three-point line, but overall from the field. But again, when he's on, he really is a great player. Again, the defense is an entirely different conversation, but on the offensive end of things, he really does help Miami. He can stretch the floor, obviously, because he's such a great three-point shooter, but he's added that runner, that floater in the lane, and he's actually been very good in the lane shooting that floater this season. It seems like he's shooting a lot more of those type of shots throughout each and every game, which is all obviously great because he's not reliant only on the three-point shot. And also the facilitating and the rebounding is been very low key for Tyler Hero, but he's been very good at it all season long. Even especially before we had Rozier, we saw the high assist numbers from Tyler Hero, and the rebounding has been sneaky good for Tyler Hero as a really a two guard, but played a lot of the one early this year for the Miami Heat.
Yeah, he's improving, and if he continues to improve like this, he'll be a big part of it going forward. And one more thing is regarding this is obviously Wemby spoke out on the Heat. He said their culture, it's inspiring. So it's good to see that players around the league, and obviously one is as highly touted as Wemby, even though he's just brand new into the league, is praising their culture. And that goes to show that Miami Heat are a big culture team, and it's not just seen in like North American players, it's seen around players from Europe and things like that as well. But let's move on now. In Houston, I'll let you touch on this. The defense continues to impress. I wrote defensive, but I meant defense. The defense continues to impress, and I'm going to pop up the screenshot here. They have been the number one defense so far through a week and a half-ish in February. Hasn't really been schematic to me either, other than more zone. Increase the intensity, and there was a time there, Houston, where the defense was bad. It was horrible. The energy wasn't there. Everyone was slacking. Jaime Jaquez got called out by Eric Spoelstra, like all these things, and now they finally started to lock in. They're starting to win some games. Rozier's hopefully going to get a shooting going. The defense has turned it around. It 180 or 360. No, it'd be 180. Yeah, in February.
Yeah, the defense has been, it's like a spark plug. Some form of spark plug went off for the Miami Heat. I don't know if it was the meeting it was a player-led meeting with Jimmy Butler and Bam really leading the way. I don't know if that you can say that was the definitive moment, but something has definitely clicked for the Miami Heat. And regardless of Terry Rozier and Tyler Hero being on the floor and them not being great on the defensive end, things are still staying good for the Miami Heat defensively. They look a hell of a lot better. They've won their last two games over the Spurs and the Magic, and their defense was really, really good in both of those games. Obviously, we're not playing two like enormous offensive threats in the Magic and San Antonio, but again, we got to start somewhere. And if we are going to defend like we have been, especially over the last few games, even the Clipper game that we lost, we were playing good defense for the majority of that game. We just had moments of like lapses, I guess you could say, where our defense did fail here and there. But again, we're trying to stop Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and James Harden. It's just it's like a 2K team. But again, we did look a lot better. The energy is a lot higher. And like you mentioned, the zone, Eric Spoelstra does a great job at playing zone defense in the NBA, which is a very scarce thing. You see a lot of it in college, obviously, high school basketball. But in the NBA, you don't see a lot of zone. And it's great to see the Miami Heat playing zone and being effective in it. They're just different, and it works really well for them.
Yeah, and if the offense, the offensive firepower is something that's always going to be there. The biggest question was defense, and if they can get the defense going, they're very, very scary. And they're already a championship contender, but that would put them over the top.
If they can hold teams to like the 105 point mark, I know it's impossible in today's NBA because we're at like the average score is like 115 to 125 nowadays. But like if the Miami Heat can hold teams like under 108, 105 points, we are going to win a lot. And it's not just because we're playing great defense, but we can score more than 105 to 110 points a game because of the offense we've assembled. Like we've mentioned a bunch of times on these episodes, we have four legitimate 20-point per game scores just in our starting lineup, not even mentioning the second string guys or the bench players or even that fifth starter. We have a lot of offensive threats, and if we can just play the defense we need and showcase the energy that is required, we will win a lot of games.
Yep, and that's going to be exciting, but they need to keep it up, and hopefully they don't start to slack. But let's move on now, quickly, before we wrap up. This is a bit of I guess an unfortunate update. It's for Highsmith. It's obviously unfortunate for the whole situation, but it's also a bit of a positive thing here. And you can see this. I know a lot of Heat fans have probably saw it. He basically got into an accident and things like that. But he is going to be back practicing with the team. He wasn't speeding and any of that, so everything is good on that front. It seems the pedestrian is okay, which is good. But regarding Haywood Highsmith, glad everyone's okay. He's going to be back with the team. That's obviously the priority was the pedestrian that he hit being okay. He's in stable condition, which is great to hear. And a very unfortunate situation. It didn't seem like anything was there was no like foul play there. He was not speeding, doing anything like that. And unfortunately, he just ended up hitting a pedestrian. But he's going to be back. The pedestrian is good, and he's been very solid for them this season. So I'm glad that everyone is okay in that situation. And things could have been a lot worse on multiple ends of that.
Yeah, he's listed day to day. Obviously, he didn't play in our last game against San Antonio, which is okay because we were still able to get a victory and we didn't need him all that bad. But again, we don't play again until Sunday, this up and coming Sunday. It is now Friday, February 9th. So he has another few days off until we play the Boston Celtics, where we probably will need Haywood Highsmith and his defensive abilities. So hopefully everything gets well with him, and obviously the pedestrian, thankfully they're okay. But Haywood Highsmith hopefully gets back to 100% before Sunday's game, and we can use his defense.
Yep, exactly. And he wasn't moved at the deadline like a lot of people thought originally. So that situation is good. A very positive update there. Obviously, it's unfortunate it happened, but hopefully everything works out with that. And the Heat will, they could definitely use his defensive abilities, as he's been a big part of the reason that they have been number one defense so far in February. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this stuff. There's a lot of news going around. Obviously, the deadline's over, but the Heat still have some moves to potentially make, so we'll have you covered for that. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.